The Galactic Alliance had promised peace. Humanity had believed them. For years, Earth had worked to build strong relations with the Zephyrin Empire, a powerful alien race that controlled dozens of star systems. Trade agreements were signed, diplomatic meetings were held, and treaties were written. Humanity had offered its technology, resources, and knowledge, hoping to create a future of unity. But the Zephyrins had never wanted peace. They had wanted control. The betrayal begins. It happened without warning. The planet Vega IV, one of humanity's largest outer colonies, was thriving. Cities were growing, trade was booming, and people felt safe under the protection of the Alliance. Then, one night, the sky burned red. Without a single declaration of war, Zephyrin warships appeared in orbit. Within seconds, the colony's defense grid was disabled. Military outposts were obliterated before they could even send a distress signal. Civilians ran for shelter as fire rained from the sky. The Zephyrins did not come to negotiate. They came to exterminate. The destruction of Vega IV. The first explosions hit the capital city, New Avalon. Skyscrapers crumbled as plasma bombardments turned buildings into firestorms. Entire neighborhoods vanished in seconds. Families ran through the streets, searching for safety. There was none. The Zephyrin ground forces landed next. Thousands of heavily armored alien soldiers marched through the burning city, slaughtering any survivors. Human troops fought back, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and unprepared. Within hours, Vega IV was lost. Millions were dead. Those who survived were captured and enslaved. And the worst part, no help came. The Terran High Command's shock. On Earth, the leaders of the United Terran Federation were in shock. Vega IV had been under the protection of the Galactic Alliance, yet the Alliance had done nothing to stop the Zephyrins. When Earth's diplomats demanded answers, the Alliance's response was simple. Humanity is not our concern. That was the moment humanity realized the truth. The Alliance was a lie. The treaties meant nothing. Humanity had trusted monsters, and now they were paying the price. The Council of War. In the underground bunkers of Terran High Command, the leaders of Earth gathered. Generals, scientists, and politicians sat in silence as images of Vega IV's destruction flashed on their screens. Admiral Leon Kane, the supreme commander of Earth's military, stood at the center of the room. His voice was cold, filled with quiet fury. We offered peace. They chose war. A long silence filled the room. Then President Elena Vasquez spoke. Her words were slow, deliberate. Then we will give them war. There would be no more diplomacy, no more negotiations. Humanity had been betrayed. Now, vengeance was the only answer. The beginning of the end. Across Earth and its remaining colonies, factories roared to life. Shipyards worked day and night, producing fleets of warships, battle cruisers, and stealth bombers. Scientists unlocked new levels of cybernetic enhancements, AI warfare, and energy weapons. The Terran military prepared for war like never before. They had tried to be part of the galaxy. They had tried to be civilized. But the Zephyrins had made one fatal mistake. They had forgotten what humanity was capable of. And soon, the entire galaxy would learn. The Zephyrins were not conquerors. They were executioners. Vega IV, once a thriving human colony, was now a graveyard. The Zephyrin fleet had reduced entire cities to ash. Millions of civilians were dead or captured. The survivors wished they had died in the bombings. Because for the Zephyrins, death was mercy. A world in flames. When the last explosions faded, the Zephyrin soldiers marched through the ruins. Their heavy, insect-like armor glowed in the firelight. Their weapons hummed with energy, still hot from slaughtering humans. They weren't looking for resistance. There was none left. The human soldiers who had tried to fight were dead, their bodies scattered in the streets. The planetary defenses had been crushed in minutes. The Zephyrins had won. And now, the real horror began. No survivors, only slaves. The Zypherans didn't just kill. They collected. Men, women, and children were dragged from burning shelters. Soldiers laughed as they watched humans beg for mercy. Entire families were chained and thrown into transport ships. For the Zypherans, humanity wasn't just an enemy. It was a resource. The strongest humans were sent to the slave camps on Zypheran worlds. The weak, the wounded, and the elderly were executed on the spot. The Zypherans didn't waste time. They had no interest in weakness. Among the captured was Commander Ethan Drake, leader of Vega IV's defense forces. He had fought until his last bullet, his last breath. But it wasn't enough. Now he knelt in chains, his face bruised and bloodied. Zypheran guards surrounded him, their glowing red eyes watching him like a predator studying its prey. One of them, a Zypheran general named Valrax, stepped forward. He tilted his head, inspecting the human before him. "You fought well," he said in a voice like grinding metal. It didn't matter. Drake spat blood on the alien's boots. "We're not finished." Asterisk, asterisk. Valrax only locked asterisk, asterisk. "Oh, but you are." Then he turned and gave the order. "Burn the planet." The final firestorm. The Zypheran warships in orbit received the command. They adjusted their cannons. They locked onto the remaining cities. Then, one by one, they fired. Massive plasma bombs rained from the sky, igniting the very air itself. The oceans boiled. The forests became seas of fire. The last remaining human structures crumbled into nothing. By the time the Zypherans were done, there was nothing left of Vega IV. Just fire, just smoke, just ash. And somewhere, deep in the ruins, a human distress beacon blinked weakly, sending one final message to Earth. They came. They destroyed. We are gone. Earth receives the message. On Earth, the distress signal echoed through military channels. The room was silent as the leaders of humanity listened. The last words of Vega IV, the last cries of its people. Admiral Leon Kane stood still, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. His officers waited for his command. At last, he spoke, his voice like ice. "Prepare the fleets." Earth had tried for peace. It had trusted the Galactic Alliance. It had followed the rules. No more. Now, it was humanity's turn. And this time, there would be no mercy. The destruction of Vega IV changed everything. Humanity had tried peace, but the Zypherans had answered with fire and blood. Now, Earth had only one goal: revenge. The United Terran Federation declared total war, and the entire human race prepared for battle. Factories worked day and night, building warships, exosuits, and AI-driven weapons. Scientists pushed the limits of cybernetics, energy shields, and stealth technology. Humanity had always been innovative, but now they were something else, unstoppable. The Terran Armada was born. Thousands of battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, and stealth bombers filled Earth's shipyards. Soldiers underwent brutal training, their bodies enhanced with combat implants and nanotech armor. Even civilians took up arms, ready to fight for their species. The Zypherans thought they had crushed humanity's spirit. Instead, they had forged them into something deadlier. Admiral Leon Kane stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the TSS Vengeance, staring at the stars. Behind him, the largest fleet in human history awaited his command. The time for waiting was over. The time for talking was over. The hunt had begun. And soon, the Zypherans would learn the truth. Humanity does not forgive, and it never forgets. The Zypherans expected fear. They expected humanity to hide, beg, or surrender. They were wrong. The Terran Armada struck first. Hundreds of stealth ships emerged from the darkness of space, bypassing Zypheran defenses. Planet Carthos V, a heavily fortified Zypheran military base, became the first target. Within minutes, Terran forces hacked their systems, shut down their defenses, and bombed their supply lines. Xyphoran soldiers barely had time to react before human drop pods rained from the sky. Elite cybernetic soldiers landed, their armor absorbing enemy fire, their advanced weapons tearing through alien ranks. The once feared Xyphoran warriors fell like insects before the might of humanity. By the time the battle ended, Carthos V was a graveyard. Not a single Xyphoran was spared. Humanity didn't just fight. They exterminated. Across the galaxy, Xyphoran commanders panicked as more of their colonies fell one by one. The aliens had started this war, believing humans were weak. Now, as their worlds burned and their fleets crumbled, they finally understood the truth. Humanity was not prey. It was the predator. The Xyphorans had always believed they were the dominant species of the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved billions, and crushed any resistance that dared to rise against them. For centuries, they had ruled through fear and power. But now, they were the ones afraid. The terror begins. After the fall of Carthos V, human forces spread like a storm, striking deep into Xyphoran space. It wasn't just an invasion. It was a calculated extermination. The Terran High Command had made one thing clear. No mercy. No survivors. No second chances. The Xyphoran colonies fell in days. Orbital bombardments wiped out cities, leaving nothing but fire and ruins. Cyber warfare crippled their supply chains, turning their own networks against them. Human spies and operatives infiltrated their ranks, assassinating key leaders before they could even order a counterattack. Then came the nightmare squads. Elite human soldiers, heavily augmented with cybernetics, were deployed behind enemy lines. These warriors didn't just fight. They hunted. Using stealth cloaking, EMP weaponry, and psychological warfare, they stalked Xyphoran commanders in their own strongholds. Some were found with their throats slit, their bodies pinned to walls with human daggers. Others were simply gone, leaving behind only the echoes of their terrified screams. The Xyphorans once saw humans as inferior. Now they whispered another word in fear. Demons. The psychological war. Humanity didn't just destroy the Xyphorans. They broke them. On the conquered planets, holograms of Vega Ivy's destruction were broadcasted nonstop. Xyphoran civilians were forced to watch as images of their own war crimes played before them. The message was clear. This is what you did to us. Now, we do it to you. Captured Xyphoran soldiers were not executed immediately. Instead, they were released, broken, terrified, and alone, back to their own people. They told horror stories of unstoppable human warriors, of entire bases vanishing overnight, of whispers in the dark before death came. Entire fleets refused to engage the human forces. Xyphoran generals abandoned their posts, choosing exile over facing the wrath of humanity. In some cities, Xyphoran civilians turned against their own government, begging for surrender before the humans arrived. But surrender was not an option. The message to the galaxy. The Galactic Alliance, the same body that had refused to help humanity, now watched in horrified silence. They had let the Xyphorans butcher Vega IV, believing humanity would collapse. Instead, they had unleashed a monster. Alliance members debated intervention, but there was no easy answer. What could they do? Humanity was no longer asking for help or permission. It had become a force of pure vengeance. Admiral Leon Kane, the architect of humanity's war, finally sent a message to the Alliance. It was short, simple, and terrifying. You watched us burn. Now, watch them suffer. Xyphoran desperation. As human warships darkened their skies, the Xyphoran High Command begged for negotiations. They offered peace, reparations, even surrender. But humanity had already made its decision. The Xyphorans had never given the people of Vega IV a chance to beg for their lives. They had never shown mercy. So humanity would return the favor. The final battle was coming, and the Xyphoran homeworld was next. The Xyphorans were desperate. Their fleets had been shattered, their colonies burned, and their people driven to the edge of extinction. Humanity had become their nightmare, and now The last remnants of their once mighty empire had only one option left: a direct attack on Earth. If they could strike at the heart of humanity, perhaps they could force a ceasefire. Perhaps they could cripple the Terran war machine before it finished wiping them from existence. It was a gamble, a final, reckless attempt to survive. And it failed before it even began. The ambush at Jupiter. The Xipheran fleet emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, hoping to catch Earth's defenses off guard. They expected to find a scattered home defense force, a fleet too weak to stop them. Instead, they found a trap. Thousands of Terran warships lay in wait, hidden behind the gas giant. The moment the Xipherans arrived, Earth's forces struck with terrifying precision. Stealth bombers disabled Xipheran engines, leaving their ships stranded in space. Swarms of AI-controlled drones ripped through enemy formations, their movements too fast to counter. And from the shadows, Terran superweapons fired, tearing apart Xipheran capital ships in a matter of seconds. What was meant to be an invasion turned into a massacre. Within hours, the Xipheran fleet was reduced to floating wreckage. Survivors fled, their commanders abandoning the battle in terror. The last ships barely managed to jump to hyperspace, limping back toward their homeworld. They had failed. And now, humanity was coming for them. The march toward the Xipheran homeworld. With the last major Xipheran offensive crushed, the path was clear. The Terran Armada, the largest fleet in human history, prepared for the final assault. Earth's factories had worked without rest, producing more warships, more weapons, more soldiers. Every Terran colony contributed, sending their best warriors to finish the fight. At the center of the fleet, aboard the TSS Vengeance, Admiral Leon Kane stood before his commanders. His voice was cold, unshaken. "We gave them a chance. They burned our worlds. They slaughtered our people. Now we finished this war." A roar of approval shook the command deck. Humanity had started this war as victims. Now they were executioners. The order was given. The Terran Armada jumped to hyperspace, heading straight for the Xipheran homeworld. There would be no surrender, no peace talks, only extinction. The Xipheran homeworld, Xiphora Prime, had stood for thousands of years. It was the center of their empire, a planet of towering cities, vast military bases, and countless soldiers. But as the Terran Armada emerged from hyperspace, darkening the skies, every Xipheran knew one truth: this was the end. The final battle begins. The Xipherans threw everything they had at the invading humans: orbital defense stations, planetary cannons, and entire fleets, all focused on stopping the human advance. Their ships fought with desperation, their soldiers with fear, but it didn't matter. Humanity had come too far, suffered too much. Terran battleships pushed through enemy lines, obliterating defenses in their path. Swarms of AI-driven fighters sliced through Xipheran squadrons, dodging their sluggish attacks. Orbital bombardments rained down, setting entire cities ablaze. And then, the dropships landed. The ground assault. Armored Terran soldiers, enhanced with cybernetics and powered exosuits, marched through the ruins. They were unstoppable, faster, stronger, more ruthless than anything the Xipherans had ever faced. Resistance was futile. Xipheran warriors fell one by one, their weapons useless against human technology. Civilian sectors collapsed in panic, their leaders abandoning them to save their own lives. Deep within the last Xipheran fortress, Emperor Veilrax watched in silence. He had once believed humans were weak, insignificant. Now his people were on the brink of extinction. A door blasted open. Through the smoke, Admiral Leon Kane stepped forward, his armored boots echoing in the chamber. Behind him, Terran soldiers aimed their rifles, ready to end the war. Veilrax fell to his knees. "Spare us," he whispered. "We surrender." Kane's expression didn't change. He raised his weapon. Vega IV didn't get a choice. A single shot echoed through the hall. A galaxy without the Xipherans. The war was over. The Xipherans were wiped from history, their homeworld reduced to silent ruins. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Galactic Alliance, once blind to human suffering, now watched in fear, knowing that humanity had become something else, something unstoppable. As the Terran Armada returned home, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the TFS Vengeance, staring at the stars. Humanity had won. But deep inside, he knew one thing: the galaxy would never be the same again.